I will focus on the training plans and programs in the support training rooms. Professor Hakan Sarı has been the general director between 2012-2013, and strategy action plan was prepared in that period, and he guided the team. This support education rooms and their functionality have been assessed by him, and in Konya the plans are being developed and it is actually applied. The rooms, the education rooms are available. So Hakan Sarı is the one who coined this idea, and we work with him to design the plans and programs. So we have three basic pillars of our model: intensive training, feedback, and interactive model. Mr. Renzulli had a three-step model, and our model is enriched with some other programs and differentiated a little bit. It is more than a training model. It is a teaching model, and it is an adoption for the application. In training the gifted, well, as you know, there are plenty of methods. Autonomous learning, Renzulli learning model are some of them. And the one that is most used is the private classroom, or skipping some grades. I want to skip these parts a bit fast. The theory is known by everyone in the hall, as far as I can see. The requirements for special education. Well, in the past it has a different name, but now it's called teaching for the gifted, or special education for the gifted. Well, why do these children need special education? There are many justifications. There are many researches undertaken and justified. Barbara Clark attracted my attention, an important researcher, and has a very important article. She has a declaration, actually, which is composed of 17 articles, and she says enrichment, differentiation, grouping, these are all done, acceleration, etc., are done by all of us, but this is not a method. Acceleration can be used as a method, and enrichment can be used as a method, but as a whole, the whole education term and period should be covered. So we need such a comprehensive model, Clark says. So enrichment, acceleration, and grouping can be parts of the structuring and the model. This will enable us to have an effective result. YOGAM was born based on this. Feedback and mentorship, these are very important for the education of the gifted, and fast feedback is important. The emotional link should not be forgotten. Mr. Yashar yesterday emphasized that, well, the students believe in his or her gifts can vary from day to day, and they can get motivated when they can succeed in something, but if they have a tiny bit of failure, they can just lose their belief and faith. So the emotional world of the gifted indeed is quite fluctuating, and therefore the emotional side of these children should never be ignored. Clark said something. Well, the special gifted kid has the right to be trained and to learn instead of acting like an assistant teacher. This is why we need the training rooms, special education rooms. Well, these children learn fast, and teachers use these students as assistant teachers, but these students are hungry for more. They want to learn more, and they have the potential. So what can they do? Well, what the teachers are doing should be there to benefit the student, and Clark emphasized this as a right of the student. And the teacher who are training the special talented people or gifted students should not only pass information to the students, but should feedback the student continuously, should have a proper connection with the student, and should give the student the freedom to pick, to choose. So there was a meeting last week in Konya, and 21 researches were analyzed, and teacher is a major factor in the success of gifted children. So the efficiency of the teacher is very important for the success of the student. So the positive approach of the student and the teacher's deep knowledge on the subjects, etc. There are 8 areas actually that have an impact on the success of the students, gifted students. So teacher is quite an important factor for the successes of the gifted students. What are our basic targets? Well, integration should be enabled for the gifted student teaching as well. And in our department, we work on special teaching, special learning, and we have certain books. How can we use these strategies? Because these students can also be in ice-breaking training, and they can be double exceptional. Well, they might be very talented in one area, but they might have some developmental disorders like autism or Asperger's syndrome, or like dyslexia or learning disabilities. They might have some other special things they have to deal with. So we target those students as well. Applicability is very important for a model. Well, on theory, some models can look perfect, but when you start to apply it, if it is not perfect, then it is not that meaningful. It should be more practical. It should be simpler as an education model. And student skills, principles. Well, all the programs and works should have these as principles. And the talent development is something that is sustained for life. Well, talents should be developed as teams, and teams should be established as soon as possible. In 2013, Albert Ziegler was here with us, and the theme of the Congress in Germany was giftedness of the life scale. So it covers all the lifespan of the student. Because what's our target? Well, this potential talent should be transferred into an extraordinary success. So an extraordinary success, if he or she turns out to be a regular specialist, that is underachievement actually. It's not genuine success. Therefore, success can be achieved by focusing on the talents and benefiting at maximum. So this will be important for the self-satisfaction of the student, for the family and individual benefits, and the community-based benefits. So these should be the targets. In YOGAM model, The students who are diagnosed in primary school are joining the talent teams, and there are some spheres subjects. Renzulli mentioned about those yesterday too. There are 4 or 5 subjects he mentioned especially. If you were here yesterday hearing Renzulli's presentation, you would know it. Genetics, electrophysics especially are more appealing for the talents, but comparative literature are also appealing for the people who are talented about verbal subjects. And the student starts working with enrichment programs and can be a part of the team, related to team. And when the student is at the college level, well, he or she can be more than those people. There are plenty of examples, especially computer programming, electromagnetics are the areas that are investigated the most in technology. There are some students that are called prodigies. So they are students who show adult expertise when they are kids. When they focus on certain subjects, they can be quite successful and they can achieve a lot in life. But there are some barriers before it, though. What are those? The multi-potential of the students and the multi-interests of these children, and the parents sometimes try to just focus these children on multiple areas instead of focusing them on 1 or 2. So social and emotional support should be there to support those children, and one subject should be picked as the major subject for those children. They should get experts. Well, they should get better in those major subjects, and they can be supported by chess or swimming courses as well. These can be supportive areas, or they can be hobbies, but they should have some major subjects they focus on more. So on YÖGEM, we emphasize this. Every student should be in a talent team, gifted students I mean, and they should work as a part of this team. And YÖGEM takes one scientific rule: similar talent groups. So similar students, students with similar talents should be grouped with their peers. They should work together with their peers. This will be advantages. And in training models, well, the maximum there's no model that has the maximum advantage without any negativities. There are advantages, there are limitations, and of course in YÖGEM model there are limitations, but similar skills talent group is quite advantageous for our country. It is applicable, it fits our culture too. Thus, YÖGEM scheme has 3 important steps: intensified teaching, feedback, and interaction. These 3 steps are always interacting with each other. So feedback helps replanning the teaching, and based on the teaching, based on the results, the feedbacks are always given to the students by teachers and by the support experts. And what do we mean by interactive teaching? This is more about the emotional part, sensory part, and this have an impact on both of them. While teaching is about process focus, being process focused, and the students individual training models are impacted by the other 2 factors. So the model is interactive. In YÖGEM model, the teaching If activities focus on skills, when we say intensified feedback, we mean frequent feedback, constant feedback, and intensified interaction adjusted to the feedback. Well, I worked on BSAMs as well. Well, BSAMs can also apply YOGAMs, our model, and BSAM can work in harmony with the school. If they do so, this model can be applied in BSAMs, the science and art centers. Well, there is a lack of communication in BSAMs. There is no parallel work. There are some island works, separated works, and this is negative for the motivation and learning experience of the student. Well, if they are separated, one can be taken more seriously by the student. If there is very positive approach, then the regular training can be quite irrelevant for the students. They might see, well, the school is loss of time for me. This can be true, but this is how the students sees it as well. So in science and technology, science and art centers, if they are integrated with the schools, YOGAM can be applied there too. And there are ÖBEP plans in YOGAM. They are the abbreviation for the individualized learning plans or teaching plans. And I don't know how much it happens in application, but in theory, individualized training model has some teachers, some leaders, family, the counseling teacher, etc. Everyone is involved, and the plans are formed according to the strengths and weaknesses of the students and the interest areas, etc. There are enriched training plans, shortened as ZEPs nowadays, but they only focus on one thing. And it doesn't have an integrative approach. It only programs the parts at the support rooms. ÖBEP has 2 parts. It is the individualized training plan for the special talented, for the gifted, and the education model, training model and education models. There are 2 parts. And we try to have 2-step approach. Both of those approaches actually have the emotional aspect. How do we do it? Well, before we start to study on a unit, the gifted students learn by himself or herself, or is supported by the family and has gained. So you're going to start teaching a unit, but the student already might know some of the things that you're going to teach him in terms of talent subject especially. Therefore, before enrichment, we narrow we try to understand what the student already knows, and we see the current gains, and then we have individualized approaches. And there are some learning hours, and the student can go to his or her own talent area instead of coming to school at that hours. So in BSAMs there are not so much detailed programs. Every teacher has their own program, and the ÖBEPs that I have just mentioned, the system I have just mentioned, can be used. So We recommend that individualized training should be used. You have just a few minutes left. Let me talk to you about the steps. Well, as I said in the beginning, the team spirit is very important. The talent teams are important, and the support team is important, and the acceleration for the units with the preliminary assessments, focusing on the unit deeply, and individual project targets, just like the Renzulli models, and the assessment and feedback. Of course, we should have talent rooms and support rooms. Well, we shouldn't have one support room, but we should have plenty of support rooms for every interest areas. The old gains should be reviewed, and the new gains should be planned accordingly. This is the scheme that is used for enrichments. Yes, feedback. Feedback is an area that is emphasized more and more in education. Professor Bülbül Sucuoğlu has worked with the kindergarten students, and the seminars teachers receive at the end of the term should not be a regular one. They observed the teachers for a week, and they wrote down the weaknesses of the teachers. What are the problems the teacher is having in terms of maybe approaching the student, the communication skills, managing the classroom, etc. So the individualization that we did for the students were done to the teachers, and teachers were given feedback immediately as well. Well, at the end of the day, they say, well, teachers, we're going to give you feedback. You are lacking blah, blah, blah. They inform the teachers, and we are planning the teacher training at the end of the term in line with your weaknesses. So feedback should be a basic part of the training. This is true for students as well. So this should be done with the classroom teacher, of course, and the classroom teacher should define the lacking points that are most needed and should notify the teacher about it. And the feedback has two areas: observation and gain related feedbacks. Every teacher can assess the examination results and share it with the student, and this is a feedback already. You can call the student one by one and tell them what is wrong, what are their weaknesses, etc. This will be an individualized feedback, and intensified feedback is doing it constantly. Positive approach is very important for feedback. So the feedback for the student should be positive. We shouldn't ruin the good spirit of the child by being negative. The language, the style of the feedbacker is very important, and the emotional approach is equally important, and these are very important for the students. And therefore, the feedback has some principles that we have developed looking at the literature. Feedback is is to inform the student about something the student did, or self-informing. So feedback can be done by self as well. There are some approaches here, approach principles. Interaction. Well, in terms of interaction, mentorship is quite indispensable. Why? Because throughout the history, mentorship has been developed for the talented people. Can you please finish? Well, mentorship is based on one-to-one relations. Well, the teacher and the learner relation. Well, the teacher, the mentor, should be a role model, should act as a guide. Albert Ziegler also focused on mentorship and has plenty of studies. Well, as a future, mentorship is the oldest way of teaching, and in terms of gifted students teaching, it is quite beneficial because these students are quite in need of such a relation. We can do it formally or informally. A student who is interested in an area can go and meet an expert of the area, expert of the subject, and can be mentored. There are 6 subtitles. What do we mean by mentor? Should be a guide, but should be a trainer. So how is a coach different from mentor? Well, mentor is at the same time a trainer. Coach is only someone who gives advices and focusing on the emotional, but mentor is a counselor and a trainer, and there are 6 steps the mentor should do. Please finish your presentation, the moderator warns. This is a Chinese saying. While talking to someone, talking to an expert for an hour sometimes is more valuable than reading a few books. Okay, you don't have much time for this one now. I'll summarize it with a single sentence. Well, mentorship is known as the least economical way of teaching because it is not economical, because it is a teacher, an expert coming and sparing time for just one person. Therefore, we should put it into a system, and this is why we call it the intensified interaction mentorship. They call the family in the evening. Well, they also deal with the family problems, and the second part is Mr. Renzulli mentioned about the first step yesterday. School visits, he said, are important. So mentor should start with a visit, and this is how he could enrich further on. And it doesn't have to be a single school, a single student. It can be a few students that are being mentored by the same mentor. So there can be teams mentored by the same mentor. And there can be a program that includes 2 hours of mentorship guidance. Thank you very much.